Hey, what's up guys, it's Cypher, and today I'm bringing you my Stamina DK 2H and bow build that I've been playing. I've been playing this for the past few days, and I can already tell this build is the build for my 1vx needs on the Stamina DK. So let's get right into it. It's a 2H and bow build. It's running full medium. Now you can switch it up, and I'll explain that for people who want to switch it up, and maybe if you have undaunted passes or maybe you don't have certain set pieces, but it's very flexible in the idea that it really just comes down to the skills that you're using. The armor sets are there as reference, but people can run this build with Shield Breaker, with Blood Spawn, with a lot of different combinations. You're really not restricted to one armor set. It just comes down to the skills being used properly for this build to work. You just have to have enough damage and regen to sustain yourself, and people can customize that however they feel fit for their character. So let's get right into it. This is going to be our two-handed mace bar. It's a very standard bar. You might have seen this bar, actually you saw this bar in my old Stamina DK build, the one that was referenced for Maecharian's DK. And this is Stampede. Now you can go with Stampede or Crit Charge, but the reason I go Stampede, even though Stampede does less damage, it applies a 60% snare to your opponent. Now this is going to help you land your wrecking blows because they're not going to be moving as fast. Now Crit Charge will give you more damage. You can go either ways. I personally go with Stampede just because I don't really rely too much on the crit charge damage. I rely more on the up close and personal, unstable flame, dot with wrecking blow spam. That's where most of the damage is coming from. So that's why I went with Stampede, just so I can snare my opponents and have better control of my opponents in 1vx. Wrecking blow, this is going to be your bread and butter DPS. The thing is though, this ability gets a lot of slack for being spammed. I just want to challenge you to spam Wrecking Blow in a 1vx situation and see how far that's going to get you. You will not be able to spam Wrecking Blow in a 1vx unless your opponents are completely, inexperienced when it comes to PvP, because they're going to knock you down, they're going to CC you, they're going to root you. It's going to be very hard for you to land Wrecking Blows. That's why you have to position yourself properly. You have to rely a lot on your Unstable Flame and Poison Injection with your Stampede, and a lot of light attack animation canceling so that you can land 1 or 2 wrecking blows for the kill. You don't want to have to wrecking blow someone 5 or 6 times to kill them. You're not going to be able to do that. Executioner, this is going to be just your execute. It's going to buff all your attacks with your 2H, including your light attacks, while they're below a certain amount of health. And it's just you need an execute with this build. Unstable Flame. This is an extra dot opportunity you have that you can apply while you're in their face. You could put Fossilize here to just have a better chance at landing wrecking blows, but instead of Fossilize, I'm just using Stampede to slow them down. I think the extra dot damage is really important, and it just applies a lot of pressure, and it gives you an option. It's because this build, you want to play fast with this build, but wrecking blow is a slow ability. DKs don't have a Sam Whip, so you're not really left with a lot of options. So you have a lot of fast abilities like Stampede, Execute, Unstable Flame. You want to use those and balance it properly with your wrecking blow, so you kind of have a little mix of fast and slow-paced combat while you're going against multiple opponents, or even in a 1v1. Now Rally, it's going to give you your heal, it's going to give you your major weapon damage buff. Definitely need that on your bar. Ferocious Leap, probably the best ultimate the DKs have, just because you can combo this with a wrecking blow and it's going to hit for 20% more damage. I've hit 15k wrecking leaps before. I've hit 15k ferocious leaps before. It's a nice AoE damage. It gives you a big shield, so if you're outnumbered, it's going to buy you some time. Knock everyone down, and it's just a great ultimate. And it's probably the most badass looking ultimate, to be honest with you. I don't think there's another ultimate in the game that looks as cool as Ferocious Leap. Probably the most satisfying ultimate to kill someone with as well. Let's go to our bow bar. Now listen, I just released a one-handed shield and 2H build. That's a heavy armor build. It's a tank build. This build is going to be better for 1vx because it has more mobility and more damage. The tank build could be better in 1v1 for certain situations, and it's also most likely better in group scenarios because it has a little bit more tankiness to it. It doesn't need to rely on mobility as much as this build does. But keep in mind, you can still run a one-handed shield with this build while you're in medium armor. This is a medium armor build, and you can still perform well. I personally like to go with the bow so I can get the movement speed from the last bow passive, and also get poison injection, which is a nice extra dot and extra execute pressure you can add on to your build. It just gives you some range options, which is really good. So we have Igneous Shield to buff our healing, Vigor for healing, Poison Injection as just an extra dot with more execute pressure, Shuffle, pretty much mandatory, just because you don't want to be snared, you want to have some sort of mobility. You could put rapid maneuvers here, but then you lose the dodge chance. The dodge chance of this build is actually really important, just because you're not blocking, you can take really high damage, and you kind of have low health. Well, I run it with low health. You can run it with higher health. It's up to you. Reflective skills. I love using reflective skills with the Stam DK because not a lot of people expect the Stam DK to use reflective skills, especially since back then I didn't use it because I could dodge roll like infinitely. Now, since you can't dodge roll as much, you got to balance reflective skills with shuffle and all these other abilities so that you have to dodge roll as much. Reflective skills, it's very satisfying, especially when you can reflect the meteor or a crystal frag, couple it with like a dragon leap, and it can be really deadly at times. Corrosive Armor. Now over here you have an option. You can put corrosive. If you want to go werewolf this build, you can. I still haven't leveled up my werewolf. I'm currently working on that. And it's definitely an option I'm going to dabble with. But once I get this leveled up, I'll give you guys an update on how I run the werewolf with this build. But it's definitely a good ability to have corrosive armor, just because if you're like in an oh shit situation, you can pop this. You can be really, really tanky, and all your abilities are going to ignore 100% of your opponent's armor. So I use this sometimes offensively or defensively. It's a bit tricky. It costs a lot, so you don't want to like rely on this too much. But sometimes it comes in handy, especially when fighting Nightblades, because it has the AoE damage, right? So if you snare someone, pop corrosive armor, you're going to be popping them out of stealth every 5 seconds. So you just hit your wrecking blow, and they're going to try running away, but usually they won't be able to get away with your corrosive armor up. That's the 2-action bow. Let's go into the armor sets really quickly. Now, again, for armor sets, this is not set in stone. This is just something I put together really quickly. It's a good setup that I have going, but I'm pretty sure there could be some better setups. And I know for a fact that next patch in Orsinium, which is coming really, really soon, there's going to be a lot of different combinations with the newer sets to improve this build. And I already have something in mind, but I'll release that once I get that taken care of. But let me just show you guys what I'm running with and what I've been running with for the Stam DK. I'm running 5 Hunting's Rage on the body. Prismatic glyphs on all the V16 pieces. So 5 Hunting's Rage, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm running 1 Malakina shoulder. Now you can run Bloodspawn if you want the regen, Malakina for the damage. I'm running 1 Shadow Walker boots and a Shadow Walker ring with reduced cost. And I'll explain why I put reduced cost here. So it's 2 Shadow Walker and then 3 agility. So the ring of agility, necklace of agility, bow, and mace of agility. Now there's a few options you can do here. If you want to go 1 Bloodspawn, 1 Malakina with a Master's Bow, you can do that. Like go Malakina, Bloodspawn, 5 Hundings, 3 Agility, Master's Bow with a regular crafted 2H. You have those options. There's a lot of options. The point is with this build, when it comes to armor sets, don't worry too much about what you're wearing. Like you can run wills with this as long as you have at least 2k stam regen and at least 2.8k or 3k weapon damage. You should be fine with this build. Keep in mind, I'm a Dark Elf, so I don't get a lot of benefits for stamina or stam regen, but I get enough stuff just to make it work. Like this build with a Wood Elf would be a lot better, or a Redguard or Imperial. Even an Orc could run this build a little better than a Dark Elf, but for the time being, until they implement race change, if they implement race change, the Dark Elf is kicking ass with this build, regardless of the racial passes. So you shouldn't worry too much about the racial passes, as long as you maintain some sort of decent regen and enough damage. So let's go into the stats really quickly. We are using the Serpent for stam regen. We have about 2k stamina recovery, unbuffed, 1k magicka recovery. We have all our points in the stamina. Keep in mind, I have 1900 max health. That is really low, but I've learned to play with it, and I don't mind. But some people can't really play with 19k health, and you can definitely take some points out of stamina into health to do that. You can mess with your glyphs to get more health. Definitely, I recommend that for newer players, because running around with 19k health is not really recommended. Weapon damage is 27. This is unbuffed. While buffed, it's 3276. After a light attack, it's going to be 3.4k because we have weapon damage glyph on our weapon. Just going back to the glyphs really quickly. We have 1 weapon damage, 1 regen, 1 reduced cost. Now keep in mind, this reduced cost, if you're using V14 jewelry, I definitely recommend to put reduced cost on it instead of like weapon damage or regen. That way you're not missing out as much, because a V16 jewelry glyph, a V16 jewelry with reduced cost glyph is going to give you like 210 reduced cost. And a V14 is going to give you 198. So there's not a huge difference in, between 210 and 198. But there's a bigger difference between 133 weapon damage versus 174 weapon damage, which is the difference between a V16 and a V14, jewelry, pieces. So if you're using V14 jewelry, I definitely recommend that you put reduced costs on it, regardless of what jewelry set bonus it is. Going back to the stats really quickly, we are using the Serpent, we are using Magicka and Stamina Recovery, V15 drinks. You don't really need the health recovery. We're not a Vampire, we're a Werewolf. You can play this with Vampire, you can play this with Werewolf, you can play this without Werewolf. We are Dark Elf, best racial choices would probably be Wood Elf, Red Guard, or Imperial. Let's go into the champion points. I think I covered everything over here. Champion points. Let's start off with the green tree. We have 42 points into reducing the cost of stamina abilities, 65 into stamina recovery, 31 into tumbling. Pretty even split, pretty good split right here. You do want to focus on your regen and your reduced cost. Also your dodge roll. You do dodge roll a lot with this build. I might actually put more points into dodge rolling and take some points out of reduced cost, but we'll see. This seems like a good setup. Keep in mind, I have 416 champion points, so if you have lower, you should just ratio everything down. Except one aspect, I'll tell you, if you have under 360 champion points, there will be an exception for you when it comes to ratio. Don't just ratio everything down. You can ratio everything down on the green tree, but not on the red tree, and I'll get to that in a second. So, Apprentice, we have 10 points into Blessed, which is going to give you, just 5% extra healing, which is nice. Over here, we only have like 4 and 4. Now, if you have enough champion points, I do recommend you try to get the Riposte Atro, passive, just because while blocking, it grants you a 50% chance to return 5.3k damage. Now, I know you're not using one-handed shield, but even without a one-handed shield in this patch, to manage your stamina sometimes, you do need a block, and I'll tell you why. Because sometimes you dodge rolled 3 or 4 times, and you don't want to dodge roll again because you're about to like dodge roll for 10k stamina. And sometimes you had a block. So this is definitely a passive I'm looking into, but I'm not 100% sure on. I know some people who run it, and they have had some good results with it. But so for now, I'm just having 4 and 4 into Bow and Heavy Expert. The rest I have into here, 70 into Mighty, 20 into Precise Strikes, and 30 into Piercing. I have Last Stand. I have 120 points in here for Last Stand. Not everyone's going to have the opportunity to get this right now just because not everyone has this much CP. Some people do, some people don't. But this is going to be good just because DKs do rely on ultimate, and if you get an extra ultimate boost, it's pretty nice. Now, the red tree. This is really important. You guys got to pay attention here. If you have under 360 champion points, you do not want to set it up the way I have it set up. If you have over 360, yes, you can set it up the way I have it set it up. The reason is, I have so many points into the Lady Tree just because I really want Unchained. Unchained reduces the cost of my stamina abilities by 80% after I CC break for 3 seconds. So usually I'll CC break and then I'll cast Shuffle or something heavy, like something that costs a lot. That way I can get that out of the way or get it for a really reduced cost. Now, if you have under 360, you don't want to put this many points into here. You want to put a lot of points into reducing critical damage and also increasing your quick recovery. But besides that, we have 13 into crit damage, 72 into hardy, 30 into elemental defender, 18 into thick skinned, and 6 into quick recovery. That's the champion point layout. Keep in mind, I have 415 champion points. The cap is going to be coming in really soon at 501, and hopefully people will be able to catch up to the amount of champion points that some people have. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I think I've just about covered everything. You can go with Serpent or Warrior for Munda Stones, depending on if you need more damage or regen. It really is up to you. This build really just comes down to the abilities, not the armor sets you're running. The armor sets are just there to help you get your stats that you need. Once you have the stats, it doesn't really matter. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be posting this build on cypherpk.com as well as my YouTube channel, and I'll probably give a little bit more options for armor sets and maybe even ability loadouts so you can switch up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Don't forget to subscribe and like for more